My parents didn't just miss my wedding. They erased it, the same way they'd erased most of my childhood and O'Call. No excuse. Just silence. And 3 empty chairs in the front row staring back at me like ghosts who showed up even when the living didn't. Everyone around me smiled politely, pretending everything was normal. But I saw it. The pity. The whispering. The subtle tilt of someone's head as if saying, "Poor girl." Even her family didn't bother to come. That I told myself I was fine. I kept my back straight, my bouquet steady, my smile soft. But inside, a small part of me cracked, quietly and cleanly, like glass under too much pressure when I walked down that aisle, sunlight pouring over white roses, champagne bubbling somewhere behind me, a soft violin humming in the distance. The world felt beautiful, but I felt hollow. Ethan waited at the altar with eyes full of warmth, almost enough to cover the cold space inside my chest. Almost. Those 3 chairs stayed empty through every moment. When I said my vows, hands trembling, when Ethan whispered, "You're my home." When everyone clapped as we kissed, people kept saying, "You're so strong." But I wasn't strong. I was just used to being alone. Growing up in the Hale house meant living in Logan's shadow. My older brother wasn't just the favorite. He was the entire family project. His trophies, his grades, his tournaments, his dreams, his future. Everything in our house circled around him like planets orbiting a star. And me? I was the quiet one. The helper. The daughter who didn't need attention because she always seemed fine. I remember sitting cross-legged on the living room floor sketching, while Mom and Dad rearranged the mantel to make room for Logan's newest award. The sharp scent of Dad's aftershave. The click-click-click of Mom's camera. The flashes. The applause. All of it for him. My art certificate, the one my teacher said showed real promise, was shoved inside a kitchen drawer under expired coupons and loose batteries. I had asked softly, "Will you come to my art show this week?" Mom didn't even look up from stirring the pot. "We'll see, honey. Logan has regionals." That sentence defined my childhood. Logan first. Lily second. Years later, when I met Ethan, he noticed it instantly. "You talk about them like they're ghosts," he said once. Maybe they always were. So when I called to tell them about my wedding, I tried to forget all the old disappointments. I wanted to believe they'd show up this time. I wanted to believe I mattered enough. But Mom's voice on the phone was polite and detached, like she was marking off a task from her planner. "We'll try, sweetie. But Logan's firm has an event that weekend." In the background, Dad's voice was muffled. "Tell her we're busy." I remember standing by my bedroom window, clutching my phone, staring at my reflection. I smiled way too hard. As if smiling could convince them to care. I didn't. On the morning of my wedding, I texted them one last time. "There's a seat saved for you." No reply. After the ceremony, my best friend Sarah raised her glass and said, "To finding the family who actually deserves you." Everyone cheered. I laughed, but something inside me split open. Quietly, silently, like a wound finally admitting it hurts. The next 2 years were a blur of ambition, grit, and choosing myself for the first time in my life. Portland was gray and determined that fall, the kind of weather that makes you want to hustle harder. My office sat on the 21st floor, overlooking the river, glass walls, steel lines, a skyline that felt like possibility. On the day the acquisition closed, my screen flashed. Crescent Studio sold. $21,000,000. The team burst in with champagne. "To Lily Hale," Jen shouted. "The woman who built something from nothing." Glass clinked, music blasted, laughter echoed off the windows, and for a moment, I let it sink in. Every rejection, every all-nighter, every dream I carried alone because no one else cared enough to carry it with me. When the office finally emptied, I sat alone watching the city lights shimmer. And on impulse, I posted a photo of my new Porsche, tan metallic gray, parked outside my house. Caption: Dreams realized. Not to brag, but to prove to myself that I did it without them. 3 days later, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Oregon area code. I answered. Lily. My mother's voice. Soft. Careful. Like stepping on broken glass. 5 years. Not a call. Not a text. Mom. I whispered, stunned. We need to talk. Family meeting tomorrow. 2 o'clock. I laughed. A sharp, humorless sound. After 5 years of silence. Now you want a meeting? It's important, she said, clipped and businesslike. I in the background. Dad spoke urgently, telling her to get me there. And I understood everything in that moment. They hadn't changed. Not one bit. They'd seen the Porsche. They'd seen the money. They'd done the math. Ethan looked up from his laptop across the room. Everything okay? I turned my phone screen down. My mom wants a family meeting. He held my gaze. You going? Yeah. I said quietly. I think it's time. The next morning, I woke up before the alarm. Navy suit, my armor. Hair in a low bun. Heels that clicked with purpose. Ethan handed me a mug of coffee. You don't have to go. I do, I said. But this time, I'm not going as their daughter. He nodded. Remember who you are. And with that, I drove 40 minutes back to the house where I'd once learned to shrink myself small enough to fit in their world. Not anymore. Not today, this time. They were going to see me. All of me. The drive to my childhood home felt longer than it ever had. Every mile peeling back layers I'd spent years growing over myself. October light filtered through the trees, cold, pale, almost silver. The kind of light that makes everything look honest. Whether you want it to or not. By the time the house came into view, the white shutters, the brick porch, the hydrangeas Mom trimmed every summer, I felt something unexpected. Not fear. Not anger. Just distance. Like looking at a place I used to live in during another lifetime. Mom opened the door before I could knock. Of course she did. Control was her love language. Her eyes flicked immediately to the Porsche in the driveway. Sharp. Calculating. You've done well for yourself, she said. No hello. I asked softly. A tight smile formed. Yes. Hello. Inside, nothing had changed. The lemon polish smell. The perfectly aligned picture frames. The silence that felt rehearsed. Everything preserved. Like they were trying to freeze time at a point where they still felt superior. Dad sat at the head of the dining table like it was a board meeting. Papers neatly stacked beside his mug. Logan and his wife Hannah already there. Faces arranged in fake concern. Lily, Dad said, nodding with that stiff authority he always used on me. We appreciate you coming on short notice. I didn't realize I had a choice, I replied. Sitting in the only empty chair, he glanced at Mom like he wanted backup. Then he started. Your brother has been dealing with some financial setbacks. I stared blankly. And? The twins' tuition is behind, Mom added, her voice trembling like she practiced sounding delicate in the mirror. And their house, well, the mortgage is overdue. I folded my hands, calm. And this involves me because... Mom leaned forward immediately, voice softening. You're the one who's stable now, sweetheart. We thought maybe you could help. Just until things turn around. Logan chimed in, trying to sound brotherly. Family helps family. Dad slid a folder across the table like he was offering me a contract. Here's the loan paperwork. We already filled in most of it for convenience. Convenience. Such a tidy word for manipulation. My name sat at the signature line. Waiting. Waiting like they assumed I'd still been the way I used to. Convenient, I whispered. You must have been planning this meeting for a while. Mom's face tightened. Don't be dramatic, Lily. We're asking, not demanding. I looked right at her. Really? Because it feels like a setup. Logan scoffed loudly. Just like he used to when we were kids and he wanted Mom to take his side. You always think you're being attacked, he snapped. You made your money. Now act like family and share. Dad placed a steadying hand on Logan's shoulder, as if soothing a toddler. Lily, we invested everything in you. Your education. Your upbringing. This is your chance to give back. I almost laughed. The audacity was breathtaking. You mean the education I paid for with scholarships? I said softly. The one you refused to co-sign loans for? Silence. Thick, obvious, guilty. Mom's voice broke into a pleading whisper, the one I used to crumble for. Think about your niece's sweetheart. They shouldn't suffer because of this. Ah, there it was. The guilt hook. The emotional knife disguised as kindness. I stood and walked to the window, breathing slowly, letting everything settle outside. The swing set still sat in the yard. The one where Logan pushed me off for fun. The ropes now frayed. The paint faded. History aging just like everything else they'd ignored. I turned back calm. Where were you at my wedding? I asked quietly. Logan blinked. What? My wedding, I repeated. 2 years ago. Where were you? Mom's lips tightened instantly. We were busy. Logan had that event. Dad added something worse. It wasn't convenient. And there it was. The truth. Their truth. The room went silent. The kind of silence that exposes everything left unsaid. I walked back to the table and placed the loan folder in front of Dad. You'll get your answer tomorrow. Mom called after me as I walked out. Lily, don't make this harder than it needs to be. I didn't even turn around. It's already as hard as it's going to get. The next morning I woke early. My mind clear. My heart steady. Today wasn't for confrontation. Today was for closure. I dressed slowly. Another navy suit, hair slicked into a clean bun, heels sharp enough to cut through any guilt they tried throwing at me. Ethan handed me coffee again, watching my face. You're sure about this? Yes, I said. For the first time in my life. I'm sure. The Porsche purred as I parked in front of the house. This time I let the engine idle a second longer. A quiet announcement. I'm not the girl you raised. I'm the woman you created. When Mom opened the door, she wore her beige sweater set, trying to project softness. She stepped back for me to enter. You came, she said. Of course, I replied. You said it was important. In the dining room, everything was reset like yesterday's storm never happened. Dad at the head. Papers spread. Logan lounging in his chair like the victim. Mom smoothing the tablecloth. The fake calm. Suffocating. I didn't sit. I kept standing. Tall. Grounded. Let's get started, I said. Dad cleared his throat. We'd like to finalize the loan today. I opened my briefcase slowly, deliberately, letting the sound fill the room. Before that, I said, there's something you should see. Logan rolled his eyes. Let me guess. More photos of your car. I gave him a controlled smile. No, not quite. From the case, I pulled out a thick envelope and placed it in the center of the table. Its bold header caught their attention immediately. Mom frowned. What is this? A surprise, I said softly. Since we're talking about family investments. I thought I'd share mine. Dad scanned the first page. Confusion melted into disbelief. 16 million? He whispered. 4 scholarships. Every cent, I said. Legally protected. Dedicated to young women in digital media arts. Logan laughed, a choked, bitter sound. You put 16 million into strangers? Not strangers, I replied. Girls like me. Girls whose families don't see them. Mom's voice trembled, not with concern but with panic. Lily, that's irresponsible. You could have helped your family instead of throwing it away. I clicked my phone, placing it beside the papers. The red recording light blinked on. For transparency, I said, I'm recording this conversation, so we're all clear on who asked for what. Dad straightened immediately. That's unnecessary. No, I said calmly. It's essential. I took a breath, looked each of them in the eye. You missed my high school graduation. You skipped my art show. You ignored my scholarship ceremony. You didn't come to my wedding. Every milestone, every moment I looked for you. And you chose something else every single time. Mom's eyes glassed over. We only did what we thought was best. No, I cut in gently. You did what was convenient. Logan slammed his hand on the table, voice shaking. You think you're better than us because you got lucky? Lucky, I repeated, almost laughing. You think working 3 jobs, sleeping in my car, building my career from scratch was luck? Silence swallowed the room. I closed the folder, placed it back into my briefcase, straightened. You wanted to talk about family. Here's my definition. Family shows up. And you never did. Dad tried one last desperate sentence. Blood is thicker than water. I paused at the doorway, turned slightly. Then you should have thought of that before you diluted it. And I walked out. This time, without looking back outside, the air felt crisp, clean, like the first breath after a long underwater dive. I heard them arguing inside. Voices overlapping, growing louder, panicked. My phone buzzed. Email from my mentor. Foundation launch approved. Press release tomorrow morning. Perfect timing. Tomorrow the world would know. And so would they. The night before, Zuni lay in bed, staring at the dark ceiling. Strange how silence felt so different now. Before, it used to suffocate her. Now it felt like armor. She wasn't the old Zuni anymore. She wasn't the girl who begged for love. She wasn't the daughter who waited for parents who never showed up. She wasn't the sister who got erased from every memory. No, this time she was the storm. The next morning at exactly 8 a.m., Zuni stood by the giant glass window of her office. Her reflection stared back at her. Calm, powerful, untouchable. The city below was buzzing, cars honking, people rushing, life moving. And above all of that, Zuni ruled her empire. Then her PA knocked on the door, her voice shaky. Ma'am, your family is downstairs. They refuse to leave. They say it's urgent. Zuni closed her eyes for a moment. A soft, cold smile touched her lips. It can bring them up. Her voice had no anger, no fear, only control. The elevator door slid open slowly, and there they were. Her mother, her father, her brother. The same 3 people who always made her feel invisible, now standing there with pale faces, empty hands, and panic in their eyes. Zuni Betawi, her mother began, voice trembling, but Zuni simply raised her hand. Don't pretend you care. Her mother froze. Brother swallowed hard. Father looked down. The tables had turned, and they felt it. They sat across from her in the meeting room. Zuni didn't sit with them. She sat at the head of the table like a judge. Her father spoke first. We need your help. Your brother's business is collapsing. The banks are after us. We might lose everything. Zuni leaned back slowly. Oh, so now I matter. Her voice was soft, but every word was a knife. Her brother broke. We're family, Zuni. Please, just a little support. Zuni laughed quietly. A slow, cold laugh. Family? You mean the same family that didn't come to my wedding? The same family that spent their whole life proving I never mattered. Silence. Heavy. Guilty. Uncomfortable. They had no excuses left. Zuni stood up. Walked toward the window. Hands behind her back. Then she turned slowly, eyes sharp like steel. You ignored me when I needed you. Now you need me when I don't need you at all. Her brother whispered, desperate. Please, Zuni, don't do this. But she stepped closer, her heels echoing on the floor. I built myself from the pieces you broke. I created a life you never believed I deserved. And now you want to use me. She leaned down slightly. No, her family stared at her, stunned. Zuni pressed a button on the table. Security entered. Escort them out. Her mother cried. Her father pleaded. Her brother shouted. But Zuni didn't flinch. Not a muscle moved as they were dragged out. Zuni said her final words. From today onward, you are strangers to me. You lost every right to be called my family the day you chose my silence over my existence. The door slammed shut behind them. Zuni walked back to her office window. The city lights flickered below. Her reflection glowed against the glass. For the first time in her life she felt it, freedom. Not from them, but from the version of herself they created. She whispered to herself, I didn't destroy them. They destroyed themselves when they underestimated me. And with that, Zuni turned away. Strong, unbreakable, and completely beautifully finished with them. Revenge? Complete and deserved.